Jake's point was that a state-to-federal handoff like this is fairly common, but the back and forth made everything feel uncertain for years.
I don't feel like Boosie really had ill intent. I don't think he's out there doing nothing wild.
Once the Fed stepped in, the potential sentence jumped from probation territory to numbers that can put rappers behind bars for years. The case took several unexpected procedural turns. In July 2024, the felon in possession charge was dismissed after a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling questioned whether it was constitutional under the Second Amendment to permanently ban certain nonviolent felons from owning firearms. The legal backdrop was the 2022 Supreme Court decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. Because Boosie's prior conviction involved drugs rather than violence, his legal team believed those rulings applied directly to him. For a short time, it looked like he might walk away from the entire case. He even reassured fans that his shows would continue. But federal court doesn't move that easily. As explained, once you take a plea, sentencing usually comes 2 to 3 months later. Before any of that mattered, a larger Ninth Circuit panel reversed the earlier decision. The constitutional door closed. Federal prosecutors refiled the charges in a second indictment in July 2024. Boosie eventually pleaded guilty on August 26, 2025, saying he was exhausted from fighting the case. Sentencing came on January 9, 2026. U.S. District Judge Kathy and Ben Savengo, in the Southern District of California, handed down a sentence that surprised many observers. According to the DOJ press release in Times of San Diego, the outcome was much lighter than prosecutors had sought. 1090 Jake's reaction was immediate.
Yeah, because he was facing years at one point. And he went to the state.
When Vlad asked about the exact numbers in the sentence, Jake walked through the breakdown.
They dropped it, but then the feds picked it up like the same day.
For Jake, those numbers weren't typical for a federal case like this.
That ain't how it go in Fed court. Once you take a plea, your sentencing ain't till 2-3 months after that.
Jake went further, explaining how much worse it could have been. With Boosie's documented prior convictions, the case could have triggered enhancements that pushed the sentence into double-digit years. Several factors helped him avoid that outcome. The defense convinced the court the incident involved no violence beyond simple possession. His attorneys argued his record did not show a continuing pattern of dangerous behavior in recent years. The unusual constitutional questions surrounding the case may have also weakened the government's position. Compared to a possible 10-year sentence and a $250,000 fine, this was about as good as it could realistically get short of a full dismissal. The favorable outcome, however, came with conditions.
Boosie just got time served for his gun case.
Jake's broader takeaway was practical. He argued that refunding a $5,000 booking instead of paying the federal government $50,000 plus attorney fees is an obvious choice in hindsight.
Boosie was sentenced to time served, 3 years of supervised release.
He laid out the rest of what came with the deal in the same beat.
300 hours of community service and a $50,000 fine for being a felon in possession of a firearm.
Jake estimated Boosie spent between $400,000 and $500,000 on his federal defense. The system showed leniency. Now it's on Boosie not to make another mistake. What makes supervised release difficult for someone with Boosie's lifestyle is the level of oversight involved. Federal supervision typically includes regular check-ins with a probation officer, drug testing, travel restrictions, and full compliance with all federal, state, and local laws. For an artist whose job requires constant travel for performances, every condition creates a potential violation. To understand why so many people followed this case closely, you have to look at his full record. The 2023 San Diego arrest was only the latest chapter in a legal history stretching back nearly 2 decades. The arrest that built his record. Long before any federal courtroom in San Diego knew his name, Boosie was already well known in the Baton Rouge legal system. His encounters with law enforcement escalated in the mid to late 2000s as his music career gained traction. One of the earliest documented incidents occurred on October 22, 2008. East Baton Rouge sheriff's deputies arrested him after finding marijuana, a blunt, and a Glock firearm in his vehicle during a traffic stop. He faced charges for marijuana possession and illegal carrying of a weapon.
No, Normally, you hear people, like, I think on average, if you look up the federal statistics, it lands at around 4.5 years for felon in possession of a firearm.
Jake went further on how bad it could have been.
So like if you have acts of violence or drug cases, and then I believe it's like a 15 mandatory minimum.
He reportedly accepted a plea deal on a third-degree marijuana charge, receiving suspended time, which later set the stage for probation violations. In 2009, things escalated. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison on drug and gun charges, reportedly stemming from probation violations or additional possession offenses. During that time, he continued recording music behind bars. By 2010, his legal troubles intensified. On June 17, 2010, a grand jury indicted him on first-degree murder charges tied to the 2009 killing of Terry Boyd in Baton Rouge. Prosecutors allege that Boosie arranged a murder-for-hire plot, paying Mike Louding about $2,800 to carry out the shooting. According to prosecutors, the motive involved a perceived threat. Boosie allegedly learned through a letter or street sources that Boyd planned to rob and assault him. Boyd had also reportedly robbed one of Louding's associates for roughly $720. Boosie and Boyd had indirect personal connections through one of Boyd's relatives. Along with the murder charge, Boosie faced multiple drug-related counts: 3 counts of possession with intent to distribute narcotics, 3 counts of conspiracy to commit possession with intent to distribute, and 2 counts of conspiracy to introduce contraband into a penal institution. These charges were tied to conduct both inside and outside correctional facilities. He pleaded not guilty to the murder charge. On November 29, 2011, while awaiting trial, he pleaded guilty to the drug-related offenses, including conspiring to smuggle codeine, marijuana, and ecstasy into Louisiana state prisons. He was sentenced to 8 years in state prison. That conviction later became the foundation for what happened in San Diego because, under federal law, the felony made him prohibited from possessing firearms. The 2012 murder trial of Lil Boosie Hatch was one of the most high-profile cases involving a rapper at the time. Prosecutors, led by Assistant District Attorney Dana Cummings, called nearly 30 witnesses. The defense rested without calling any witnesses. The centerpiece of the prosecution's case was Louding's videotape confession, in which he allegedly admitted to shooting Boyd and said Boosie paid him $2,800. Cell phone records showed Louding's phone traveling from near Boosie's residence on Pompey Drive to the area of the murder scene around the time of the shooting, then returning. One of the most controversial moments came when prosecutors played excerpts from Boosie's songs, including 187 and Body Bag. Specific lyrics were cited as references to paying Louding. A forensic expert testified that certain tracks were recorded the night of the murder, possibly minutes before or after the shooting. Prosecutors argued the lyrics showed personal intent, not artistic fiction. The defense countered that rap lyrics are exaggerated storytelling common in the genre, and that violent imagery in hip-hop does not equal confessing to a specific crime. The trial included dramatic moments, including Louding taking the stand and reportedly recanting parts of his confession, claiming police coercion. On May 11, 2012, after about an hour of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous not guilty verdict on the first-degree murder charge. Boosie was acquitted. Defense attorney Martin Regan stated the evidence supported the defense. Boosie remained incarcerated on his separate 8-year sentence for drug and contraband charges. He was released on March 5, 2014, after time served in good behavior. The acquittal allowed him to rebuild his career without a murder conviction attached. Mike Louding's case ended differently. In 2013, he was tried separately for Boyd's murder. Cell phone evidence was again central. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The period from 2009 to 2014 represents most of Boosie's documented prison time. After his 2014 release, he rebranded and relaunched his career with albums like Touchdown 2 Cause Hell and a stronger social media presence. Public reports suggest a relative lull in major legal trouble for several years, and later court filings claimed he had been on probation for 6 or 7 years by the time of his 2023 arrest. Still, the road from his 2014 release to the 2023 San Diego incident was not completely quiet. Other moments kept his name in legal headlines, including viral footage showing how quickly he can lose his composure with law enforcement. During the 2026 sentencing, federal prosecutors referenced his extensive criminal history. According to court filings, this included resisting arrest, battery, assault, illegal firearm possession, and smuggling contraband. While many incidents date back to his early Baton Rouge years, prosecutors used the pattern to argue he repeatedly chose risky situations despite knowing the consequences. One viral moment illustrating this volatility came from a Georgia traffic stop. TMZ footage showed Boosie handcuffed in a police vehicle, losing patience over what he called constant harassment. The breaking point wasn't just frustration. It was a declaration that he no longer cared what happened to him. This public outburst was exactly what defense attorneys had to explain away to a federal judge. Images of Boosie raging at officers didn't support the argument that he was reformed and ready for supervision. In early 2026, he also faced a civil investigation by the Louisiana Attorney General's office.
Yeah, well, look, at this point, he's got 3 years of supervised release, which means no messing up.
The probe involved allegations of false advertising and unfair trade practices regarding his 2025 Boosie Bash at Southern University. Allegations stated promotional materials used the name and image of Caleb Wilson, a student who died in a hazing ritual, to imply a connection to a memorial fund. The AG's office accused Boosie's team of misleading consumers and unauthorized use of the student's identity. Investigators claim the team failed to respond, leading to a court motion to compel documents. Boosie blasted the AG, claiming the stress required a hospital visit. As of early 2026, the matter remained an investigation into potential consumer protection violations rather than a full lawsuit. His attorneys denied any intent to mislead, calling the inquiry politically motivated. This investigation matters because his federal supervised release requires total compliance with all laws. While civil matters generally don't violate release terms, any escalation could threaten his status. He has 3 years of supervision starting from January 2026. His history, the Georgia footage, and the Louisiana probe made this sentencing feel like a turning point. Federal courts sometimes grant time-served sentences when defendants have faced substantial legal restrictions. His attorneys argue the years of back and forth were punishment enough. Ironically, upon leaving court, Boosie didn't choose a quiet life his lawyers promised. He immediately returned to the public conflicts that define his career. For 2 decades, Boosie has been one of hip-hop's most outspoken voices, criticizing anyone from industry veterans to those he labels snitches. This unpredictability comes from street loyalty, industry frustration, or raw emotion. Regardless, if Boosie disagrees with a rapper, he says it publicly. This habit led to a heated feud with Kodak Black, starting after Kodak's 2023 collaboration with 6ix9ine. Boosie, who strictly opposes cooperating with law enforcement, attacked the move immediately. The criticism eventually turned into a personal beef. Around the sentencing date, 1090 Jake noted Kodak timed a diss track specifically for Boosie's court appearance.
Because I mean, giving back 5,000 versus having to pay the feds 50 is a major fucking difference.
Following the sentence, Boosie did not back down, using social media to address Kodak directly.